Hello everyone, and welcome to this Diablo 3 dungeon guide for the Barbarian Immortal King's Call set. We'll be going over how to set up your character, and I'll also explain how to complete both primary dungeon objectives. Keep watching until the end to see a full playthrough of the entire set dungeon with additional tips. To get started, let's first take a look at the set bonuses so we'll know how to gear out our character. This set requires the use of two skills, Call of the Ancients and Wrath of the Berserker. When both of them are active at the same time, a damage buff is provided. Luckily, the two-piece set bonus lets the Call of the Ancient skill last virtually indefinitely, so once we cast it one time, we shouldn't have to worry about it again, meaning we really only have to focus on casting Wrath of the Berserker to get the damage buff. The remaining set bonus mechanic is that spinning Fury will reduce the cooldown on these two skills, allowing us to cast them more often, particularly Wrath of the Berserker, and ensure we have the damage buff active. We won't have to do anything special to benefit from this bonus, and will naturally get the cooldown reduction as we cast our damage dealing skill in the dungeon. Therefore, considering these set mechanics, cooldown reduction and fury generation will be the main priorities for the gearing and skills setup. In this setup, we are using 5 of the 6 set pieces in the torso, hands, waist, legs, and feet slots. In the head slot, we have Leoric's Crown, which provides increased cooldown reduction with a diamond equipped in the helm. In the shoulder slot, we have Fury of the Ancients, which buffs the companions from the Call of the Ancients skill. In the wrist slot, we take Reaper's Wraps for increased fury generation. In the main hand and offhand slots, we take the two-piece set items Bolcathos' Warrior Blood and Solemn Vow. We take these weapons for the increased fury generation and buffs to Whirlwind, which we will be using as our main damage dealing skill in this build. In the next slot, we have a Hellfire Amulet. There are several passives that can provide increased damage output or toughness. In one of the finger slots, we have Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, which provides some good cooldown reduction. And in the other finger slot, we have Skull Grasp, which provides increased damage for Whirlwind. When it comes to rerolling stats on the gear, the top priority is cooldown reduction, as mentioned previously. Then take anything that increases damage output. For Kanai's Cube in the weapon slot, we have Ingium, which provides cooldown reduction after killing elites. In the armor slot, we take Mantle of Channeling for increased damage and toughness while casting Whirlwind. And in the jewelry slot, we have Ring of Royal Grandeur, which allows us to gain the 6-piece set bonus while only having 5 of the 7 set pieces equipped. For gems, we have a diamond in the head slot for cooldown reduction, rubies in the torso and leg slots, and emeralds in the weapon slots. For legendary gems, we have Bane of the Powerful, Bane of the Trapped, and Taeguk for increased damage and toughness. For Paragon, the main priorities are movement speed, maximum fury, and cooldown reduction. Resource cost reduction can be beneficial, but you may choose to avoid it for increased cooldown reduction via the 4-piece set bonus, which is based on fury consumption. Next, let's go over the skills. We'll be using Call of the Ancients, which is mandatory for the dungeon. We take the Together as one rune for the significant toughness benefit. Next, we have Wrath of the Berserker with the Insanity rune, which is another mandatory skill. Then, we have Whirlwind with the Wind Shear rune, which is our main damage dealing skill and Fury Spender. Next, we have Battle Rage with the Ferocity rune for increased damage and movement speed. Then, we have Warcry with the Charge rune for increased toughness and on-demand fury generation. And Threatening Shout with the Falter rune for additional increased damage and on-demand fury generation. For the passive skills, we have Unforgiving and Animosity, both which provide fury generation. Then, Ruthless for increased damage output. And lastly, Boon of Bolcathos for the reduced cooldown on Wrath of the Berserker. Now, let's go over the dungeon objectives. The first primary dungeon objective is to kill every elite using the 4000% damage bonus. In other words, kill every elite with both Call of the Ancients and Wrath of the Berserker skills active. Since the 2-piece set bonus allows Call of the Ancients to last virtually indefinitely, you should only need to cast it a single time at the beginning of the dungeon. Then, you'll only need to focus on casting Wrath of the Berserker to benefit from the buff. Although the companions summoned by Call of the Ancients will take damage when you do, they will also regenerate health and typically won't die. Ultimately, all you need to do is make sure these two skills are active before you strike the killing blow on each elite. So just glance at the skills often and be mindful of their durations. The second primary dungeon objective is to kill 150 enemies while Wrath of the Berserker is active. You'll inherently have Wrath of the Berserker active for the majority of the dungeon, so just cast it when its cooldown has expired and you will easily achieve this objective. Since you'll most likely need the damage buff from the 6-piece set bonus in order to kill monsters, you will naturally need both Call of the Ancients and Wrath of the Berserker active before you can kill anything, making both of these two objectives quite trivial. With enough cooldown through the recommended skills and items in this guide, you should be able to keep the two skills active for the entire dungeon. Next, let's take a look at the dungeon map. This dungeon is fairly small, and the monster spawn locations, including elites, are random. The best approach is to follow the outer perimeter through the whole dungeon. Once you've reached the opposite side from the entrance, as you make your way back, cover any interior hallways that you haven't already cleared of monsters. Just keep an eye on your minimap. There's no unique features nor anything else special that you need to know about the layout. So now that you have the setup and you know how to approach the dungeon, let's head to it. Go to Act 3, then to the Ruins of Sescheron waypoint. From there, head northwest across the bridge. The dungeon entrance is to the right after you enter the building structure. And next, we'll look at the playthrough. For this run, I went with very bare bones gear to demonstrate techniques. Any additional items or stats that you get, consistent with the recommendations earlier, will give you a much easier time completing the dungeon. Once inside the dungeon, cast all of your buffs and start whirlwinding enemies. The only time you will want to stop is if you're getting low on fury and need to regenerate, or if you need to pause for a few moments to wait on your Wrath of the Berserker cooldown to expire. Once you've cast Call of the Ancients a single time, you shouldn't need to refresh it. Although the summoned Ancient Companions will take damage when you do, they will also regenerate health and shouldn't die. If they do, just recast it, but you should only have to focus on Wrath of the Berserker. Here's the first elite. Glance down at Wrath of the Berserker to make sure it's active, then take him down. Another elite, same process. Wrath of the Berserker was really close to expiring there. You may need to back off at times to make sure you refresh the buff before striking the killing blow. Just stay on the move and try to avoid getting hit by the elites unnecessarily. They can hit pretty hard if you don't have a lot of toughness. Stay away from the front of them to avoid their frontal melee attack, and stay on the move to avoid getting jumped on. Now we're heading back toward the entrance, and we'll need to make sure the interior hallways are cleared of monsters. Keep working your way along the outer perimeter. Feel free to cast Warcry and Threatening Shout often throughout the dungeon. They will both give you a boost of fury, helping you stay topped off, allowing you to keep whirlwinding and benefiting from any channeling based buffs on legendary items. There, we somewhat quietly completed the second primary dungeon objective without any extra effort. Just keep spinning and killing. Here's the last couple of elites. Make sure to recast Wrath of the Berserker when its cooldown is expired. Keep glancing at it often. And we're done. Good luck trying to finish this one. If you enjoyed the guide and would like to see more content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.